Oh my God, hi. Guys, right before I came to do this stream about Kevin Franke, wouldn't you know it, but some breaking news is taking place regarding the Karen Reed trial. So I already had a little Karen Reed update that I wanted to include today. So now I'm going to include a big Karen Reed update. Another juror has come forward, according to a new defense filing. I am like, I'm a little bit all over the place right now because I'm just like, I'm changing my title. I'm changing my thumbnail to like last minute, literally within the last 10 minutes. So let me just really quick. Welcome if you're here. Hi. I'm doing some quick updates. Oh my God, Sammy, you know. Oh, hi, Disney. Thank you, Disney. Tell everybody hi, or everybody tell Disney hi. And I'm just really quick updating my title to reflect. Okay, sorry guys. I'm just trying to make sure that we're going to be okay in this stream. Thank you so much for your patience. Just so that people know what I'm going to actually be talking about. Oh, Sammy, you're totally good. Okay, so hi. Welcome. My name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, Hannah Needs to Yell. This is my commentary and my speculation. This is going to be one crazy heck of a video. Thank God I have time to spare today. Right before I came on here to stream about Kevin Franke saying some things, literally, I was watching the Alec Baldwin trial, and people in Emily D. Baker's chat were sharing some breaking news regarding Karen Reed. So I streamed literally yesterday about, messily, I'll admit, but I streamed about the defense's recent filing asking for a motion to dismiss the charges, 2 out of the 3 charges, because turns out the jury, unbeknownst to many, until they approached the defense attorney, until one of them approached the defense team, 2 others had their secrets spilled by friends for the defense team. Turns out basically the Karen Reed jury actually did decide that 2 out of the 3 charges against Karen Reed, she was not guilty of. It was the 3rd charge, which was charge number 2. Charge number 2 was the one they were conflicted about, but 1 and 3, they were like, not guilty, not guilty. So the defense team filed a motion to dismiss those 2 charges. They filed affidavits that declared, under penalties of perjury and losing their license, that these things are true, and they included like statements from the jurors. And now we have a 4th juror who has come forward. So let me share what I have about this. Is everybody ready? Because I have not fully read through this yet myself. We're going to read through it together. So this was posted by Ted Daniels at 10:52 a.m. today. Breaking, new defense filing in Karen Reed case says a 4th juror has come forward to report the jury found Reed not guilty on the intentional unaliving 2 and leaving the scene. So those are the 2 out of the 3 charges that they're, so far now we have 4 people, 1/3 of the jury saying we actually did decide she was not guilty of those. So let me look at this new filing. Let's take a look. Hi, can I please zoom? Ahaha, we are zooming. Okay, sorry, I'm really excited. Because I'm so curious if this is like the last time where did this juror come directly to Alan Jackson, or is this another juror whose friend like sent Yannetti a screenshot? So let's take a look. Defending Karen, hi. defendant Karen Reed's supplemental memorandum in support of her motion to dismiss. So it's a supplement to the motion that's already there. Now comes the defendant Karen Reed by and through undersigned counsel and hereby respectfully submits this supplemental memorandum in support of her motion to dismiss, filed July 8th, 2024. As reflected in the attached affidavit of Alan Jackson. So there's another affidavit from Mr. Jackson. Can I highlight? I cannot highlight while I do this. I'm so sorry. A fourth deliberating juror, Juror D, has now confirmed that, quote, that the jury reached not guilty verdicts on count 1 and count 3, end quote. Alan J. Jackson affidavit is the site for that. Once they were dismissed, quote, many of the jurors appeared uncomfortable with how things ended, wondering, is anyone going to know that we acquitted Karen Reed, her, on count 1 and 3? No one ever asked about those counts, end quote. Juror D told counsel, quote, part of their discomfort was that they knew that the jury had reached verdicts on 2 counts and Karen Reed might be retried on those 2 counts. And internal quote, that's just not right, end quote. Juror D further stated, quote, every one of us will agree and acknowledge that we found Karen Reed, probably her, not guilty of counts 1 and 3, because that's what happened, end quote. Based on the attached affidavit and all of the reasons set forth in its opening motion, and the fact that the disclosures of Juror D completely confirm the veracity of the previously filed affidavits regarding jurors A, B, and C, the defense respectfully renews its contention that the jury acquitted Ms. Reed on counts 1 and 3, or alternatively, that there was no manifest necessity for a mistrial as to those counts, and therefore, the double jeopardy protections of the federal and state constitutions require that those counts not be retried. So, I love having those quotes there in the motion because I have a feeling that this tweet does not contain the affidavit from Alan Jackson. I like reading through affidavits, I do. But I think we have the most important quotes here in the motion. Is anybody surprised? I'm glad that there's more and more people coming forward confirming the same thing, and it's not somebody coming forward to contest what they were saying. So, what a morning. I want to see if maybe he followed this up with another tweet with, oh my God, I'm not signed in. Hold on. Because I don't like go on X much, you know? Really quick. I have to sign in. I want to see if there's any follow-up to that tweet. Ted Daniels. Or Ted Daniel. I don't know. Ha 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 ha. Wait, that's the motion. That's the filing. Is this is Alan's? Yes. Okay. Now we can get to the actual affidavit. So let me share that with you as well. A share. Oh, thank you. Add to stage. There we go. So Ted Daniel to the rescue. He's got Sorry. I think this is some obscure SpongeBob quote to say somebody's got the poop. I think that's tell me what I'm thinking of. But for some reason, my brain was just like, he's got the poop, he's got the scoop. And I was like, why? I've never in my life have I put that phrase together before. I don't know what that is. Anyway, hi. I'm a professional. So let's look at this affidavit. All right. So this is a supplemental affidavit by Alan Jackson in support of Karen Reed's motion to dismiss. I, Alan Jackson, declare I am Karen Reed's lawyer. Number 2, on Monday, July 8th, 2024, I was contacted by juror D, true name and identity withheld to maintain anonymity. Based on my conversation with juror D and that juror's description of who they are, where they were seated. So they're saying, okay, this is real, that they're a real juror who deliberated. Number 3, juror D told me that they decided to reach out to me because they were uncomfortable, quote, with how trial ended. They said that the last day of trial was a, quote, whirlwind, end quote, and everything happened fast. They recounted that their perspective was that the jury was brought into the courtroom, the note was read, the mistrial was declared, and the jury was then rushed out of the courtroom. Following a brief meeting with the judge, the next thing they all knew, the jury was on the bus. They described the end of trial as very confusing. So even the jury, this juror, felt that it was unusually quick. And to be honest with you, this has been a big point of contention for the defense. All the previous times that the jury sent notes to the judge would call everybody in, all the lawyers, and say, I've received a note from the jury. She would read the note from the jury. She would say, ask for their opinions. What are we going to do about this? How do we want to address it? Ask for both sides to comment back and forth a few times. And then she would respond accordingly. I think, both times she brought the jury in. She read them some kind of an instruction, and then she sent them back out to keep deliberating. And then the third time she received the note from the jury, she assembled everybody together, and it was so quick I can remember it. She said, the jury is at an impasse, so I'm going to bring them in. The jury comes in. She says to them, okay, jury, I am in receipt of your note. She reads the note. It ends with something like, any further deliberation would force us to start to compromise our deeply held moral beliefs. She folds up the note. She says, I'm not going to do that to you people. Your jury service is completed. I'll come to the back room to talk to you, something like that. Thank you very much. That part I'm paraphrasing. The other parts I can quote because it was so quick and concise. So nowhere in there was first, let's all read the note together. The lawyers could come up and look at the note to make sure she was reading it accurately word for word. There was no, what do you want to do about this? What does every side say? None of the discussion and debate that had gone on the previous times. Instead, this time, she was kind of doing her own thing. The jury gave a note. The jury is at an impasse. We're going to bring them in. Just because she's saying we're bringing the jury in does not necessarily mean that she's going to declare a mistrial. So I don't even think that the defense necessarily should have known to object or speak up at that moment. They had no time. So she said she was bringing the jury in. She could have wanted to do anything because they hadn't even heard the note at that point. The note could have been it's somebody's birthday and she wanted someone to come in and we'll all sing happy birthday. I don't know, for all they knew. And so there was not really an opportunity for the defense to pipe up and say, hey, can we ask questions? Can we get specific about the charges? Are they hung up on one charge? Are they hung up on all the charges? What's happening? And even to this juror, it felt incomplete. It felt rushed. It felt like a whirlwind. And I think it's so interesting that the juror felt that in this process. We have the perspective of having seen the things that the jury did not see, of how those conversations usually had gone before with the previous notes. They don't have that perspective, but they can still tell this is different, which is fascinating to me. It is an intelligent jury, I tell you that much at least. Okay, next. Juror D says, 4. Juror D said that it was very troubling that the entire case ended without the jury being asked about each count, especially count 1 and count 3. Juror D explained that the jury reached not guilty verdicts on count 1 and count 3, and that the disagreement was solely as to count 2 and its lesser offenses. This completely lines up with what the other people had come forward and said. And guys, I'm so excited. 6. Juror D said that the jury actually discussed telling the judge that they had agreed unanimously on not guilty verdicts for count 1 and 3, but they were not sure if they were allowed to say so. This is what I mean. I was saying yesterday in the stream that I think the jury was confused about what they were allowed to do or not do. And so it seems. Number 7. The jury believed that they were compelled to come to a resolution on all counts before they could or should report verdicts on any of the counts. That's what I thought. After discussion, the jury decided to inform the court that they were deadlocked and they expected they would get further instruction about the remaining decided counts thereafter. So they were expecting a discussion, they were expecting instructions, because that's what had happened thus far for them with every note they had already given. Juror D explained that they were confused and upset that such further instruction never came. Oh, the thing is, this is so interesting to me. The difference between how a legal, a person who does trials all the time, a judge, a lawyer, a bailiff even, who is steeped in the legal system, how they read a note like this versus how an average Joe, average Jane juror writes a note, what they intend when they write something, what they think is going to happen when they write something. They didn't know that the Tui Rodriguez charge was going to come. They didn't know that there were 3 strikes and then you're out. They didn't know. So after 2 times of receiving instructions from the judge, they thought, okay, the 3rd time we'll get more instructions. We'll get more, we'll have a conversation. It's just fascinating to me. Let me know what you think in the comments or in the chat. If you were this juror, would you have thought the same things that they are thinking? Okay. Juror D explained that after the jury was excused and aboard the bus, many of the jurors appeared uncomfortable with how things ended, wondering, in italics, is anyone going to know that we acquitted Karen Reed on count 1 and 3? No one ever asked about those counts. 9. Juror D stated that once the case was over, they remained very uncomfortable with the result. They reiterated it did not feel right. They said that part of their discomfort was that they knew the jury had reached verdicts on 2 counts and Karen Reed might be retried on those 2 counts. And, quote, that's just not right, end quote. 10. Alan Jackson, inquired whether, in their opinion, other jurors would agree and acknowledge that not guilty verdicts were reached on count 1 and count 3. Juror D, without hesitation, said in substance, italicized, every one of us will agree and acknowledge that we found Karen Reed not guilty of count 1 and 3 because that's what happened. Number 11. Juror D reiterated that they believe that it would be unjust for Karen Reed to be retried on either count 1, the 2nd degree intentionally unaliving, or count 3, leaving the scene with injury or death, because the jury has already unanimously found her not guilty of those charges. 12. Juror D further stated that if necessary, they would agree to testify in order to explain to the court that the jury unanimously reached not guilty verdicts on count 1 and count 3 as long as their identity remained protected. And I believe that's the end of that. Yep, it's just those 2 pages. We don't have the sign off, but you can imagine a sign off here of Alan saying, I report this under penalty of perjury. This is my affidavit. So let me go back and see if there's anything else. Ooh, 11 minutes ago. Did I guess that's right now. And that's this. This is that is this. Okay. So that's the news. That's the biggest update, is a fourth juror coming forward. And I think because of the previous jurors coming forward, Alan had more specific questions to ask them, more details about, like, okay, let's get real specific about what you're telling me here. And I think that that was very helpful in filing this additional affidavit. So that's the big jury news. It's fascinating to watch this process happen. There was other news related to this case as well before even that. And then we're going to get to the Kevin Franke thing, I promise. I didn't even say yet, hi, hello. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, or if you like my content, like this stream, let people know we're here. Subscribe to the channel, set your notifications to all, because I'm mostly doing streaming these days, not videos. Although I am putting together a video. I'm doing a stream series on the troubled teen industry, Paris Hilton, Bad Baby, the origins of this whole industry. I'm going to do my next stream on that this Friday. And then I'm going to be putting together a video with some content from those streams. So join in if you want, especially if you prefer a stream over a video. There was other big Karen Read related news and updates yesterday related to Kevin Albert and Chris Albert, who, if you followed the trial, they're familiar characters. Chris Albert actually testified at the trial. Kevin Albert didn't testify at the trial, and he was, supposed to be not involved. And but his name did come up because Michael Proctor was at least a drinking buddy of Kevin Albert, the brother of Brian Albert, the Canton police officer whose home is where John O'Keefe's body was found on the front lawn of, mysteriously passed away. So there was supposed to be recusal of the police department that Brian Albert and Kevin Albert worked for. Because of Kevin's relationship with Michael Proctor, there was a lot of doubt cast upon that. But more specifically, I have a video here from CBS Boston that goes into the specifics that came out at trial that explain why some consequences have started to suddenly happen for Kevin Albert, even though he was not personally involved at this trial. So, let's take a little look at that. I wonder when any consequences might happen for Brian Albert. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. So the title here gives it away. Officer Kevin Albert placed on leave after Trooper Proctor testimony in the Reed trial. Proctor's getting everybody in trouble, getting himself in trouble, getting Kevin in trouble. Let's see.
A Canton police officer with ties to the Karen Read investigation is now on paid leave. Officer Kevin Albert is the brother of the owner of the home where John O'Keefe was found dead. The Canton police chief says that Albert was put on leave related to the testimony of Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator during the Reed case. Interestingly, Albert was put on leave back on June 13th, but it only came to light tonight. And now the state police union is defending Trooper Proctor, saying they are, quote, disappointed that he was suspended without pay for his inappropriate text messages revealed during the trial.
Sorry, guys, I don't have my earbuds today. They're downstairs charging in preparation for this stream. So, of course, naturally, I don't have them. How interesting that the state police are the ones who suspended Trooper Proctor, but they're also saying that they're disappointed that he was suspended. I'm confused by that. Maybe I misheard what's going on, or I'm misunderstanding what's going on there. Unless the union is upset that the police, I think that's it, is that the police union is upset that Proctor was suspended by the police department, which is silly because anybody who watched this trial and saw those texts, it's really not hard to jump to him being suspended without pay. It just kind of seems appropriate, I don't know. Who am I?
WBZ's Tammy Mutasa explains this new fallout from the closely watched case.
Tonight, it's a hot topic in Canton. Police practices and, of course, Trooper Michael Proctor. Plus, a bombshell announcement about another law enforcement officer connected to the Reed case.
I haven't broken any laws. No, you're picking and choosing.
In the midst of the drama over time limits, at the top of mind for Karen Reed supporters at the Canton Select Board meeting, it's town policing and the murder case lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor. He's now been suspended without pay after sending offensive texts about Reed to his colleagues, family, and friends during the investigation.
He deserves to be terminated, and we need to rid our policing systems of all Michael Proctors.
During the meeting, though, a surprise announcement.
Chief Rafferty has placed Kevin Albert on paid administrative leave while an outside, and please be quiet.
Somebody started clapping when he said that Kevin Albert was being placed on administrative leave. And to be clear, he's being suspended with pay, but it's still significant.
Canton Police Chief now says Kevin Albert, a Canton police officer and brother to Brian Albert, the homeowner where John O'Keefe's body was found, is now on paid administrative leave.
Kevin Albert was placed on leave on June 13th and will remain on leave until the results of the investigation are provided by the outside independent investigator.
And then
And that is very encouraging to hear, that there is an outside independent investigation going on. I wonder if that's the same as the FBI investigation or if it's a different one. I don't know for sure.
public apology from another Albert brother, Chris. He's a select board member and a witness in the retrial who had recent verbal arguments with people.
Despite the tremendous harassment, stress, and anxiety that my family, extended family, and I have been subjected to over the past 16 months, my interactions were inappropriate, and as an elected official, I am held to a higher standard.
Meanwhile,
Cry me a river, Chris Albert. That is so lame. Like, I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm actually the victim here, but sure, I could have been nicer with my words. Sir, you need to go to apology class. That's not how it works. I'm so sorry.
the state police union is defending Proctor, saying in a statement in part, the decision to suspend him without pay pending the outcome of the investigation is disappointing because it shifts Trooper Proctor's punishment to his young family. His children will lose access to benefits such as health insurance.
You have to understand that some of the conduct is in direct violation of department rules and regulations. So things like sharing state police business is a violation.
Todd McGee is a retired.
Yeah, exactly. The deflection, like, that's how you know they have nothing to stand on. That's how you know they know that what Proctor did is bad. Like, I'm so sorry. Just like in any other job where you have benefits, where you have health insurance, whatever, in any of those jobs, yeah, if you fuck up, it impacts your whole family that you support, not just yourself. That does not change. Like, that's all the more reason that he should have gotten his act together and kept his act together instead of, like this former trooper is saying, violating policy. That's just more guilt for Michael Proctor to feel, not for us to feel, not for the police department to withhold proper consequences from this person. I'm so confused as to how one is related to the other. It's a job. You have to do your job right or you get fired. And just like any other job with benefits, you lose the benefits. So do your kids. So you should do your job right. Huh? The deflection, the blame game. My God. Pathetic. Truly pathetic. They know he done fucked up. They're just mad. I hate that shit. I hate that shit.
Hired Massachusetts state trooper with 24 years on the job. He says it's still the union's job to defend Proctor, but he offers this insight on the process for disciplinary actions.
The department has high expectations of all of its members to have the utmost integrity and to maintain that level of confidentiality about police business, especially in a high-profile case.
Now there's a state police internal affairs investigation that'll determine if Proctor will ever return to the job. In Canton, Tammy Machasa, WBZ News.
Tammy.
Okay, so this video did not lay out as well as there was another video that I was watching that laid out a little bit more specifically the reasons that Kevin Albert was suspended with pay. This video didn't really say it as much. He was suspended with pay because of the actions that his text messages with Michael Proctor, which were read on the stand, like what actions were revealed via those texts. So let me pull that up real quick. No, don't do that. Okay, there we go. Hush. Okay. Where are the texts? You talked about the texts. I promise that you did. Show me the part where you talked about the texts. Ooh. Hey, let me just say, regardless of your gender, it's important to wash your face. There's some people in these videos that I'm just surprised by. Hygiene is good for you. Sorry. Okay, so this video has a little bit more of that, I believe. So let me share this one with you. And there we go. And let's try this one.
Some news coming out about his status.
Chief Rafferty has placed Kevin Albert on paid administrative leave.
The reason?
Conducted relative to his actions in a case he investigated with Michael Proctor approximately 2 years ago.
That decision about Kevin Albert's status was made on June 13th. From June 10th through 12th, Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, who's now suspended without pay, testified in the Karen Reed trial. Proctor admitted to partying with Albert in July 2022, months into the Reed investigation. In court, defense attorney Alan Jackson read these texts Albert sent Proctor.
It's bad! Exclamation point, exclamation point. I was hungover for sure today! Exclamation point, exclamation point. But he left his badge in your cruiser after a night of drinking. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Back at the select board.
So this is interesting. Two things. One, it sounds like they're saying that Kevin Albert was part of the investigation when he was having these texts with Michael Proctor and talking about being drunk and leaving the badge in the cruiser and stuff. Kevin Albert was not part of the investigation, but Kevin Albert was not. Michael Proctor was. So when the guy said that he was suspended because of his conduct related to an investigation that he was part of, I think they could have worded that better. Michael Proctor was part of the investigation. Maybe there was some other investigations, though, that Kevin Albert was on, and his drunkenness affected that. I also am thinking, one of the things that I loved the most about watching Alan Jackson as a lawyer, as a cross-examiner, was that he was not afraid to get people in trouble. Like, no matter what, regardless of what was going to happen to his client, Karen, he's like, if she's going down, we're taking everybody else down with us. The whole Brian Higgins thing with like accusing him of misusing federal resources for his own gain, and like his lawyer came up to the stand and all of that business. It was artful. It was beautiful. And now having Michael Proctor read through these texts where all of the terrible things are being said, all of the things implicating Kevin Albert are also being said. Like, he's not afraid to cause other criminal charges to be brought or other police or disciplinary action to be taken, he's like, he's not afraid of like getting sued for defamation or anything like that. Like he's got the receipts and he's just putting them out there and seeing what happens, and it is happening. So I hope that that is some form of justice, as much as it seems like Karen Read could still, have be in danger a little bit due to the ongoing, like, they have to litigate still that second charge of the manslaughter. Even, if the judge dismisses the first count and the third count that the jury apparently was unanimously not guilty on, they still have to fight that second charge of manslaughter. But along the way, I hope it's some form of justice, even if she does get like the worst for that, which I don't think that she should. But regardless, if other people are also are being held accountable for what they definitely did, what they on paper in black and white said and did, then I hope that feels like some form of justice.
Board meeting, an apology from member Chris Albert over his 2 verbal altercations in public. He referenced the stress and anxiety his family has experienced over the last 16 months.
Interactions were inappropriate, and as an elected official, I am held to a higher standard.
Some of the residents, despite the apology, feel so much damage has been done since the murder of John O'Keefe, a handful even calling for receivership of the Canton Police Department. Live in Canton tonight, Aaron Logan.
All right, so those are the big Albert Boys updates. And that was gonna be my big Karen Read update before the 4th juror came out this morning. So there's so much happening this morning. And Alec Baldwin's trial started today. Opening arguments are taking place as I speak to you, which is probably why we've got a few fewer people in the audience right now. But I'm happy for those of you who are here. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to catch up on Alec Baldwin at 1.5 speed once I'm out of here. So now let's talk about the Franke family 8 passengers update. I have some thoughts. So those of you who are here for the trial stuff and the court stuff, this is going to be less that kind of thing. But basically, there was a hearing yesterday in Utah regarding child welfare, and Kevin Franke spoke at that hearing, speaking a lot about the experience that his family went through regarding Jody Hildebrand and his former wife, Ruby Franke. If you're completely unaware of this situation, basically, at the end, was it the very end of July or the very end of August of last year, of 2023? Very popular family vloggers. The mom of the family was arrested, as well as her business partner. They were both arrested for child endangering, child harming of 2 of the mom's children. And there's been court processes. They're both in jail right now. I think there's a parole hearing coming up soon to determine how long their sentences are going to be, but they each need to receive at least a minimum of 4 years based on the counts that they pled guilty to. So now that happened a few months ago, that the ladies were arrested and arraigned and pled and so on. Ooh. Yes. So this is okay. So this all happened a few months ago, and there's been a lot of online conversation, at least, about what about the dad, Kevin? The mom, Ruby, and the business partner, Jody, they're in jail for at least 4 years, up to, I think the maximum could be 30. Tell me if I'm wrong. But what about the dad? And the quick answer that I have to that is due to the fact that the police were only charging Ruby and Jody based on a time period when Kevin was out of the house. We know, those of us who've been around on YouTube for a long time and watching stuff related to this channel for a very long time, we know that over years and years of time, we've watched this family online doing things like parenting their kids in a way that is at least very strict. If not, some would say harming. Harming is a code word for something else that starts with an A, okay? And there was a certain argument that it's related to their faith as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or just being generally conservative, spare the rod, spoil the child kind of people. Whatever it is, we've watched this happen for years. Something changed in 2022, though, when Jody Hildebrandt came into the picture and her extremist group, Ruby and Kevin and family, became part of that extremist group and became further and further and further extreme until Kevin was eventually kicked out of the house. And what the police were investigating and essentially pressing charges about was from that time period when Kevin was kicked out of the house, the actions that took place during that time period. So, because he was out of the house, for reasons that he felt like he did not have choice in, he felt like he was forced out of the house, and the police view him as kind of like a brainwashed guy that they're sympathetic toward. They didn't charge him. I have a little bit of a problem with that, and I think a lot of people do too. This is a good question, Livy. I'm sorry, where does religion say anything about that? About, I guess, the treatment of kids. And like you said before, they took away a kid's bed. One of their kids, as a form of punishment, took away his bed for his bedroom, I believe, for 8 months or something, and had him sleeping on a beanbag chair. Phrases like "spare the rod, spoil the child," I believe that is a quote from the Old Testament. There are people who kind of cherry pick phrases related to kids and extrapolate them out to mean all sorts of things that they aren't necessarily meant to mean. But there's a lot that you can make the Bible say depending on how you make it say that. You know what I mean? So I think that that's where, and especially the state of Utah. I said before that I'm doing a series related to the troubled teen industry. This is a parallel, but might be related. I don't know. The state of Utah is the state of Utah is where a lot of troubled teen camps are located. The ones that are really, really harsh on the kids. The state of Utah is also highly, highly Mormon / Latter-day Saints. Mormon and Latter-day Saint living, from what I've learned about it from channels like Jordan and McKay, and it can be extremely, depending on how you do it. With all faiths, it's always depending on how you do it, depending on how extreme you are about it. If you are very committed, if you are even, really, I don't want to say, well, depending on how you take things that are taught, it can be a very strict faith. It can be a very harsh punishment kind of faith, depending on how you interpret things. It can be kind of like Christian fundamentalism is what I grew up in, and that's what I'm familiar with. There are ways that you can use the Bible to say things that tell you to treat people. We see this in ongoing modern day Christian discourse in politics, in the media all the time. You got the Christians who will hit their kids. You got the Christians who would refuse to. You've got the Christians who think gays are okay. You got the Christians who hate them. Being a particular faith doesn't mean as much as you might think it would mean. So just like there are Mormons and Latter-day Saints who are, I'm sure, very lovely, kind, gracious people, there are also Mormons and Latter-day Saints who are strict and harsh and whatever. And it seems like that's already the direction that the Franke parents were leaning in before they then met Jody. Before they both, Kevin and Ruby, met Jody and let her into their home to parent their kids and have influence over their lives. So I understand, as someone who grew up in extremist religion, to the extent that I would call it a culty upbringing of mine, I understand the feeling of being, essentially finding out that you were brainwashed, finding out that you were completely wrong about everything, the existential shift that happens with that, the existential doubt, the existential rocking of your psyche and your everything. It makes you question everything. It makes you lose your grip on reality a bit. And part of the response to finding out that that is true for you, that you were brainwashed, is to look at how that happened so that you can prevent it from happening in the future. I don't feel like Kevin has really admitted to himself. He knows that he was brainwashed, but I don't think that he has admitted to himself how he let that happen. I also think that part of the decultifying yourself process is the very unfortunate but necessary process of looking at your actions and beliefs and behaviors while you were in the cult, while you were controlled, while you were brainwashed, whatever the reason is, and looking at those actions and behaviors and beliefs and saying, that was wrong of me. I need to make that right. I need to change. I need to admit that I did something wrong there. I think Kevin, because he was not arrested, I think he feels justified by the fact that he wasn't arrested. And I think that he is not seeing the things he did wrong, or at least he's not willing to admit them. And I'm saying that because of the vibe that he's giving off in these statements that he made yesterday to the Utah board as they're looking into child welfare, the child welfare hearing. And I'm glad, I'm thrilled, honestly, that Utah is having a child welfare hearing and that they're looking into these concepts. I hope that it applies to troubled teen camps that all, for some reason, not all of them, but a lot of them are based in Utah for some reason. I hope that Paris Hilton flies herself out to talk to them about their child welfare, like she just talked to Congress. I did a stream about that. I'm glad that they're looking at these laws and stuff. I think that Kevin is a very interesting person to be advocating for stricter laws. So let's look at his statements so that you can see what I'm talking about. I'm giving you this big pre-summary, but I want you to see what I saw. Really quick, I have an article about this hearing that I linked in the description of the stream. It's kind of mostly summarizing what Kevin said, but it also goes into a recap of the whole story related to the family. At this hearing, let me tell you some things that we're not going to be able to see in the video. DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services in Utah, Director Tanya Mirup. Here, I'll share this with you so you can see it too. So this is an article from the Salt Lake Tribune out there in Utah. Can you get out of here? Okay. Hey. Okay, sorry. And it's an article about Kevin Franke speaking at this child welfare hearing to legislators in the state of Utah. Scroll, sorry. The video I'm going to show you has Kevin's statement, but it doesn't have the whole hearing, certainly. So I want to include these statements from the DCFS director, Tanya Murup. DCFS director Tanya Murup, I don't know how to say it. I'm basing it on how I say syrup. She told the legislators on the committee yesterday, that cases where families don't cooperate with caseworkers are some of the most difficult that DCFS sees. She told the panel that when school is in session, DCFS workers will often try to interview children there at school to try to figure out what's happening at home. Part of that challenge is that sometimes the children are very indoctrinated, she said. They might be fearful. They sometimes may be fearful of the government. And so sometimes the interviews with children may not be enough. And let me just say, a lot of conservative, either political ideals or religious ideals, pit the government against religion all the time. One of the biggest bad guys for conservative fundamentalist Christians, and it seems for conservative fundamentalist Mormons, is the government trying to tell you what to believe. So that's she's not making that up. Myrup said DCFS workers will try to gather information from neighbors, friends, or other family members, but she said that sometimes that's not sufficient information to justify illegal intervention. It ends up being hearsay. Hearsay is not necessarily reliable sometimes. I know that caseworkers do go to extreme efforts in attempts to try to reach the family, she said. Multiple home visits with law enforcement, multiple attempts to see the children in school, but unfortunately there are times when after those efforts, we may just not have enough to legally intervene any further. And this is one of the things that sucks about our system. The legal system in the United States is, in general, reactive, not proactive, because we're all about freedom. We don't want to take away people's rights, because what if we can predict and we can foresee a way for somebody to do something wrong, but what if they don't? What if they choose to do the right thing instead? We don't want to prohibit them from being allowed to make the right choice, but we want to prevent them from making the wrong choice. But if in doing so, we also prohibit them from being able to make the right choice, then it's more likely there's not going to be a law about that. So you have to wait until something goes wrong before you legislate against it to prove that if given this choice, people will choose the wrong thing. So we need to take that choice away. It sucks. Kevin Franke made one other ask of the legislators at Tuesday's meetings, that an audit be done of the Division of Professional Licensing. Yep, that's fine. We're going to look at that. Okay. So those were the statements from the DCFS director that I thought was important and impactful to have. So now let's take a look at Kevin's statements. This is coming from KUTV 2, Salt Lake City, and it's just his statement, unedited. What is wrong with me? Present, share screen, in the statement, and go. Everybody get a drink of water. I'm parched, so.
It can be.
All right. I prepared some remarks, and I've shared those with Representative Watkins, and so I believe if she has not done so already, those remarks can be made available to you upon your request.
Would you make sure you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'll be happy to do that. Good morning, representatives. My name is Kevin Franke, and I am the former husband of convicted child abuser Ruby Franke and a former client of convicted child abuser Jody Hildebrandt.
And I should also be a convicted child abuser because of my neglectful treatment of my children, in Hannah's opinion, allegedly. Also, hi, I'm giving my speculation, my opinions, my commentary. I am not, I wasn't part of this family. I don't know for sure what happened, yada, yada. I'm a lady who watches things and gives my opinion. This is my opinion. It's not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police. Whatever. Don't take what I'm saying as fact. Do your own research. But based on what I've seen, I am still shocked that Kevin never got any legal repercussion.
In July 2022, I was led to believe by Ruby and Jody that I was selfish, narcissistic, enabling to my children, lustful, and a significant danger to my family. I was convinced by those women and others from Jody's organization named Connections with an X that to save my family, I needed to immediately leave my home and family and live in a no-contact separation for an unspecified amount of time. For over 1 year, I remained in complete isolation from all but Jody and some other of the men who participated in Connections.
So it's interesting to me that that is where he's starting the story of his involvement with this. He's starting with him being kicked out of the family. We're not going to pay any attention to all the time that led up to that. We're not going to pay any attention to all the times I was being called out on YouTube for mistreating my kids. We're not going to pay any attention to how I let Jody into my house. And we there was plenty of time that I could have chosen to lock the door and leave her out, and asserted my right as a parent to these kids to not allow things, I get that he was brainwashed. I get it so hard because I was too. But you have to be able to look back and say, yeah, I fucked up. And maybe I have to face some consequences for that. And I'm not going to like it. And I might want to feel justified by the fact that I had a very different mindset then. But if I hurt somebody, I hurt somebody, regardless of why, and it sucks. He's a university professor, by the way. This is a smart man. Anyway, we continue.
Who were in similar situations, I'll add. Since Jody's and Ruby's arrest on August 30th, my children and I have been in the process of reunification. It's been difficult and painful, this process of healing from this trauma and this tragedy. I'm speaking today to you, representatives, on behalf of myself and also my adult daughter, Miss Sherry Franke, who could not be here with us this morning.
Okay, this is what I don't get. Why is he speaking like he's a victim? He's the most double-edged sword kind of blessing and curse. He's partially a victim here, but he's also a victim of his own making. Because of all the stuff that led up to July of 2022 when he was kicked out of the house. Because of all the stuff that he allowed and participated in leading up to that time. Then when the extremist took over, there was this power struggle between him and Jody. When Jody won that power struggle, now he's a victim. You see what I'm saying? This was not the beginning of this story for Kevin Franke, but that's how he's seeming to see it. He's got to spend some time looking in the mirror. He's got to spend some time looking at the past. I think he's probably compartmentalizing that stuff because he doesn't want to deal with what he did. But he's got to. He's got to at some point, especially if he's struggling through reunification with his kids. It's probably because they don't trust him because of what the fuck he did. I don't know. I'm not in the family, but that's what I would guess.
To share our joint thoughts regarding child welfare laws and the standards for professional licensing in this state.
Sorry, these are joint thoughts from himself and Sherry Franke. I cut him off in the middle of that sentence, so I'm just going to reiterate that.
Ms. Jody Hildebrandt, a professionally licensed mental health counselor in the state of Utah, knew the Utah child welfare system like the back of her hand, including its rules, its limitations, and its loopholes. Jody convinced my wife that the government wanted to rip religious families like ours apart and indoctrinate our children with secular teachings.
What did I say? That is a big theory among the religious conservative, religious fundamentalists. Also, did she convince you of that, Kev? Or just Ruby? When did that conversation start? Did it start just after July 22nd when she kicked you out? Or was it happening before? Sir?
In the aftermath of my wife's and Jody's arrests, I've come to learn that Jody masterfully coached Ruby in navigating the child welfare loopholes in this state. In a nutshell, all they had to do were three things. 1, keep the children isolated from the world. 2, ignore all the phone calls from DCFS caseworkers. And 3, not answer the door when DCFS and/or police officers knocked. That's it. Those three things were all that were required for all of the train wreck that you've seen play out in the media over the past year.
Here's the thing. I believe Kevin about that. I believe that Jody said that. I believe that she taught Ruby these things. I believe that she manipulated the system. On my list of who's the most at fault, Jody is at the top of the pyramid. But then Ruby and Kevin are both right beneath her, because I think that Jody was the leader here. They trusted her and her judgment and her very terrible opinions about how to fix families and raise children and whatever. But they trusted her. That is an action. That is something that you choose to do. So, you know, that both of them did, not just Ruby.
Because of the complete isolation of my children, there was not sufficient evidence based on our current laws for government to intervene despite the clear red flags recognized and reported by our close friends and neighbors and family as well.
I believe they were homeschooled, so I think that's part of the isolation going on there.
This allowed Jody and Ruby to emotionally and physically terrorize my children behind closed doors, even while those who were the closest to the situation were screaming repeatedly to authorities for help. And those authorities claimed to be powerless in the situation to intervene.
I wanted him to say, and because I was away from my family, because I was following Jody's bad advice, I was not able to step in either, or I felt unable to step in, or I was unaware, or whatever. Talk about yourself. Even if you make yourself look bad, you deserve to look bad because you left your kids in the hands of this monster. Yeah, that's something to look bad about. That's part of accountability.
Representatives' laws need to change in this state. First, we are asking you legislators today to begin changing the laws in such a way that reported red flags from multiple individuals close to children, namely friends, neighbors, and family, be considered sufficient merit to take children into temporary protective custody without additional evidence of child abuse. Perpetrators of child abuse rarely commit such acts out in public, but behind closed doors. These individuals should no longer be able to hide child abuse by simply ignoring the phone calls and the door knocks from DCF caseworkers and waiting the obligatory 30 days before the case is closed.
I agree. I agree about the second part there, that avoidance should not be a way to get out of being held accountable for child harming. I'm not sure about the first part from a legal standpoint. It would depend of saying, like, if multiple people close to a family are reporting red flags, then the state should be able to step in and take away the kids. I'm not sure about that. I think that that's a little vague. I think that that would need a lot of specific, like that's a little broad. It would need to really be dialed down about exactly what would need to happen, because if you look at the Adelson family, the trial that's been going on regarding Charlie Adelson, his mom Donna Adelson, and how they conspired allegedly to unalive Charlie's sister's husband because they didn't like him and they wanted Charlie's sister's kids to be part of their family and move close to them. People like that exist. I'm so sorry. So they could, they're just like there's monsters out there like Jody who could be the ones to purposefully, to in person harm children. You've got people like that who are so willing, in order to get custody of children and live close to children, to unalive their father. I also imagine people like that would be willing to lie about their father harming the kids if they wanted to have that be a way to get the kids removed or get them given to them kinship care. So it would just have to be really specific about what family members could say that would be taken seriously. But for his particular situation, that would have been really helpful. But what would have been most helpful in his particular situation was for him to be present. What I can't get over is him being gone for a year. And I know that he was told by Jody not to reach out, but like that should have been the red flag. If he was not allowed to talk to Ruby, that's one thing. Because of their, Jody was allegedly trying to fix their marriage, that's one thing. For her to not allow him to talk to his children should have been a whole other thing. That is a problem, that he did not feel intrinsically motivated to find a way to reach out to his kids. So he wants to say the state should listen to red flags from people close to the situation without saying, I should have been close to the situation. Again, even if it makes you look bad, you gotta say shit like that. That's part of accountability.
Second, laws regarding emotional abuse need to be created and or improved in this state. DCFS caseworkers recently told my daughter Sherry that they have never once removed a child from an abusive home due to emotional abuse in this state. Despite being much more rampant than physical abuse, emotional abuse is poorly defined by our current laws. Third, Utah laws need to become more clear, defined, and punitive regarding child abandonment.
We'll talk about number 3 in just one sweet second. As for the emotional A thing, I agree. I agree there should be laws punishing people regarding emotional harm. I also, listen, I think these are good laws to enact. I think it's just weird to have Kevin Franke be the one suggesting these things. Because it shows me that he has not acknowledged that he's done these things. Like he's saying, put these laws in place so that I can be arrested under these laws, essentially. I do think it's important to have consequences for emotional abuse. I think that this is also going to have real, if these things get passed, I think it's going to have a really positive impact regarding the prolific nature of troubled teen camps in Utah. I'm very curious to see the results of this hearing and how they impact the troubled teen industry. If you're here, reminder to like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment in the chat. Hey, how's it going? We'll continue.
Utah parents need to become more clear, defined. Utah laws need to become more clear. Third, Utah laws need to become more clear, defined, and punitive regarding child abandonment. Utah parents should no longer be able to leave their minor children at home alone for days unattended without consequences.
So, let's just talk about that for a sweet second. That is something that Ruby Franke allegedly did not allegedly, that she pled, I think, to doing. While the kids were in her and Jody's care, she would leave them alone for days while she went on trips or wherever. And, cool. Yeah, I agree. Also, Kevin, didn't you leave your kids alone for a year? They weren't completely alone because they had Ruby and Jody, but you left them for a year. Is that not abandonment? This is what I don't understand. This is what I don't understand, man. How are you going to sit there and describe all of these things that you did and be like, this should be illegal. I already did it, but nobody else should be allowed to do it. Hello? Where is there any self-reflection? It's shocking. Okay.
Finally, we cannot allow religious extremism to be an acceptable cover and shield for child abuse in this state. Lastly, we call on legislators to ask some very important questions regarding how Ms. Jody Hildebrandt continued to be licensed by this state as a professional mental health counselor.
We'll get to the licensures thing in just a quick second. I agree about the religious extremism should not be a cover. And, oh, hi, Taya. Religious extremism should not be a cover. I think that applies to situations like this. I also think that it applies to troubled teen camps because a lot of those camps are religious or religious-based. And that's something we have to talk about in that other series that I'm doing. So, like I said, I'm very curious to see the results of this hearing and see what comes of it. I hope some good stuff comes from it. I really, really do. As much as I'm irritated by Kevin Franke being the one to make these things, make these statements. Now the licensure question, which again, it's a good point that he's raising.
We call on legislators to ask some very important questions regarding how Ms. Jody Hildebrandt continued to be licensed by this state as a professional mental health counselor, even after all that was apparently known about her by DOPL, the Department of Professional Licensing, since at least 2010. We call for a professional audit of DOPL regarding what it knew about Jody Hildebrandt, when it knew it, and how it acted based on that knowledge. And we call for that audit to be transparent and shared with the public. A licensed mental health professional should not be able to just turn off the ethics and standards associated with his or her professional licensure by acting under the nebulous guise of something called a life coach. We know of no other licensed profession that allows such reckless behavior. Mental health professionals hold a powerful and sacred trust with people, usually the most vulnerable among us. And they should be held to a higher standard than they currently are by the professional licensing standards in our state.
And this, again, this is a good thing to advocate for. There are not really any regulations around life coaches, like I think anywhere in the country. So I'm not against this. This is a good cause to champion. I'm just annoyed. I'm just annoyed with almost everything he's saying.
These conclude the remarks that my daughter Sherry and I wanted to make. I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration, and also make myself available, as well as my daughter, for further discussion with the committee and legislators regarding this matter and others. And we are happy to answer your questions. We are happy to assist the legislature in any way we can.
I find it so telling. That at the end he's like, we'll help you. We'll advise you. Sir, you just created a bunch of, you just advocated for the creation of a bunch of crimes that you yourself have committed. Do you understand that? You are not there to help anybody. You're there to, you have just escaped. You have just skirted out of being prosecuted for these laws that you're hoping go into place. But he's a university professor. He's a dad. He's a YouTuber. He's used to, advising people and, being the knowledgeable one in the room and just, kind of talking as if he knows. Problem is he didn't do enough reflection here to know and be an authority on this. I hope. Oof. Okay. So this was his statement before the state legislators. He also gave an interview. I want to look at the interview. I need to turn on my AC. It is, I tried. I made it an hour 16 without turning on the AC. It's an accomplishment. But I do need to turn it on. So just give me a second. You take a drink. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, guys. The AC sound. Ooh. And I'm going to take a moment to look at the chat because you guys have had some great things to say as we've been looking at this. Don't smoke in bed. Unless and until he's saying this should be illegal and I too should be punished for having done it, I don't want to hear it. Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. We need the I'm working on the man in the mirror moment, and it's not happening. Kevin literally did emotional A and neglected his kids. Yeah. And I don't think that's a hot take. I think a lot of people have I don't know how he doesn't see it. I want to see. This is a good point. Doppel has its problems, but to hold Doppel responsible for life coaches doesn't make sense because they're not licensed. Right. They're not accountable to Doppel, and Doppel is not accountable for them or responsible for them. Therefore, they would not be under Doppel, so that's a lawmaker issue. Great point. I love having you here, Taya, because you're aren't you from this state? You're from Utah. Also, Doppel, unfortunately, is responsible for all licensing, not just counselors, and they have to balance protecting the public and professional and the professional, especially given false reports. Right. Doppel needs reform and should be looked into for the amount of people who can still practice, but bear in mind that Utah is part of the problem since they are 46th in the country for mental health. I think... Oh, you go to... Okay. You go to school here. Thank you. So I think, tell me if I'm wrong. I think that what Kevin is saying is like, oh, that's what it is. So Jody was a licensed mental health professional, and that's why they trusted her. She ran this life coaching thing unrelated to, like, she wasn't selling it as mental health therapy. She was selling it as the alternative to therapy because she's like, I'm a psychologist and psychology sucks and it's the government trying to take away your religion. And she's like, instead, come to my religion-based, but I'm going to pretend it's secular, but it's definitely based in religion, family life coaching instead, even though I am a licensed therapist, licensed mental health. And so I think he's saying that, like, because of her misdeeds as a life coach, Doppel should have taken away her license because it reflected poorly on other licensed mental health professionals. And, like, I think that's what, so not that life coaches are accountable to Doppel or that Doppel has control over life coaches, but people like her who are licensed but they are operating some sort of shady other thing, it reflects on licensed people and casts doubt and mistrust. You know what I'm saying? So they should be able or should have thought to remove her license because she was doing this shady shit over here. Is that, am I reading that right? That's kind of what I think is what he's trying to say. So let's take a look over at his interview. Again, it's raw, unedited from KUTV News, Salt Lake City. He gave this interview after speaking to the lawmakers. And I just think it's interesting to hear an even more unfiltered version of his thoughts. The written statement that he gave was part him and part his daughter Sherry. This is all him. This interview is all Kev. So let's see what Kev thinks. Pure Kev. Let's see what Kev has to say.
What two women were very easily able.
Do that for everyone.
Sure. My name is Kevin Franke, KevinFranke.
Why did you show up to the Capitol today to talk to lawmakers?
I showed up to the Capitol today to talk to lawmakers because my family has been devastated by what two women were very easily able to carry out in acts of horrific child abuse. And they were able to navigate our laws and take advantage of loopholes that exist, all from the coaching of Miss Jody Hildebrandt.
And I got to stop you right there. The amount of they did this, these two women, what they were able to do. Sir, you are the dad in that family. Are you kidding me? The amount of what those women, those evil women with their wascally wiles, like, you were there for years, dude. I will say this. When it comes to parenting, I did feel like Kevin took a bit of a back seat to Ruby. But in the pre-Jody era, in the pre-connections era, he always seemed to kind of take a back seat, and it was, if there was a disagreement between the two of them, Ruby was more likely to win when it came to how to handle something the kids had done wrong in their eyes or whatever. And that's a very, thank you, Livy, misogynistic point of view. It is also a traditional conservative Judeo-Christian, so Judeo-Christianity, that umbrella includes Mormonism, Latter-day Saints, and the point of view of, like, the mom is responsible for the kids. So I see that thread. I see that mindset on display here when he's like, oh, what these women did to my kids. As if you weren't also there for years, dude. As if you weren't a dad and didn't have any responsibilities as a dad. Like, this is what drives me up a wall about this. Where were you, bruv? Come on.
And those laws need to change. All of the ways that they were able to navigate those loopholes need to be exposed. They need to be talked about, and we need to address these issues out in public.
And again, I don't disagree that loopholes need to be closed. I don't disagree that that is what happened, that they navigated loopholes and found ways to do X, Y, and Z that was still technically within the limits of the law. I don't disagree that that happened. I just disagree that he is putting it as like, oh, these people over here did that, and that he was not part of it in some way. Allegedly, in my opinion. This is all my opinion and speculation, etc.
Seriously, just as easy as just not answering the phone. That's all it took for them to...
Sorry, I just put subtitles on because, good Lord, if it is not the quietest interviewer that I've heard in a long time. So I'm going to try to make it a little bit easier to see the subtitles. We're going to go back a little bit.
They need to be talked about, and we need to address these issues out in public.
Was it seriously just as easy as just not answering the phone? That's all it took for them to hide this from them?
Yeah, not answer the door, not speak with authorities, DCFS or police, just remain silent. And as long as everybody remains silent, then within a specified amount of days, typically 30, the case closes by itself.
I know as our team was working to cover this, and we learned of the many trips that had been made to the family home by police who were assisting DCFS, and we could just see how many times they had gone in the months leading up to this. We were surprised. I'd like to know how you felt when you learned about all of those trips by authorities to the home, yet nothing happened to help the children.
Yeah, it was frustrating for me. It was frustrating for me to hear the story of police officers. As they said, they were standing on the front porch and they could see the children and they could see my former wife through the window, ignoring them. And they said, even with all of the reports, all of the red flags that were given to them by our oldest daughter, Sherry, and by our neighbors, they still could not intervene. They were on the phone with a judge, waiting, and the judge finally said, nope, I'm not comfortable with this. You cannot intercede. And so this could have been stopped. Another thing that I was terribly...
Real quick, we'll get back to all the ways that Kevin is disappointed. I would really like to know the time period of what he's referring to, because from what I freaking remember, before 2022, there were still DCFS reports being called on the Franke family for years, because the YouTube audience saw how they treated their kids because they put it online, and they were like, I don't know about that, you know? So I think that what he's describing essentially happened is that once Kevin was kicked out of the house, I think the family kind of swooped in and was more concerned. I think that when he was still in the house, they probably assumed that there was some boundaries between him and Ruby and versus Jody and the kids, and like that there was more control and more temperate treatment while he was in the home. But once he was out, I think the family realized, oh, that's wrong. Something is wrong. Although I have to remember back to that time period when they were arrested, when Ruby and Jody were arrested, and remember, did the family members know that Kevin was not allowed to be in the house for the past year? If anybody remembers, let me know. Because I feel like they did not. Because he was not contacting anybody. He was not allowed to contact anybody except for Jody and other men in the same program. Yes, don't smoke in bed. Former wife, so he is going through with the divorce. It does seem that, yes, he is. And I could agree with this, Livy. I personally think the divorce is a farce to get the kids back like they're still together. I think Kevin, because divorce is a huge thing for Mormons, and they are definitely still Mormon. It is a big deal. But I think Kevin has convinced himself that everything is Ruby and Jody's fault. And he wants to have the kids. I don't know why. After all that time, where he's the man of the house, he doesn't take care of the kids. He didn't say these words. I'm paraphrasing and I'm imposing a mentality. But like, after all this time, now he suddenly wants to step up and be a dad, whereas before he was the working dad who, like, you know, I don't know why now all of a sudden he's like, I need to be the dad. I need to. But I do think that like now that he feels like he needs to be this caring dad, he's trying to get away from Ruby legally so that he can have full custody of the kids, so the kids don't go into the hands of the state. Or honestly, Sherry and Chad should not be saddled with having to raise their kids, though. Having to raise their siblings, Ruby and Kevin's kids. I don't know. We don't need to know why. We just need to know what's happening. Ooh, thank you. Ruby cut off her family when Jody started coming into the picture, from what I remember. That makes sense. All right, let's get back to it. Kevin, tell us why you're disappointed, please. We're all curious.
Really frustrated with was that even though I was in separation, that I was not contacted by police authorities once. Now, DCFS was trying to contact me repeatedly, but again, I was being indoctrinated just as much by Jody as Ruby was. And I was being coached the same way. They want to rip your family apart. They want to destroy your family. This is what government does, she would say. And so I didn't answer the phone.
So then, excuse the fuck me, sir. So are you blaming Ruby? Are you blaming Ruby, or are you not? Did Ruby do something wrong, or did she not? Is Ruby a villain, or is she not? You need to pick a side here, bruv, because now Ruby was indoctrinated. Just like you. Now you both were indoctrinated. Not Ruby. Dude, if Ruby was indoctrinated and afraid that the government was going to take away the kids, and she ended up as a convicted child abuser, how the fuck are you not thanking God every damn day that you were not in that jail? How the fuck are you not I don't know. I don't want to say turning yourself into the police, because obviously you're not gonna. But like, how are you not humbled, dude? How are you looking at Ruby like she's some villain if you both were under the spell of Jody. Do you like this? I don't even understand his own double standard. Is it a double standard? It's hard to tell. Listen, I would understand if he was saying that Jody is the criminal and Ruby shouldn't be in jail. Or I would understand if he was saying Jody and Ruby and me are all responsible for this. I should be in jail with them. I think the police was gracious to me because I wasn't in the home at the time. He's not saying those. He's saying convicted child abuser Ruby, convicted child abuser Jody. And then there's me, Kevin the victim. I was indoctrinated, I was cut out, and I did nothing wrong. And I'm here to advocate for people like me who did nothing wrong. Choose a story, dude. Choose. Do you see what I'm saying? Am I making sense? Let me know in the chat if I'm making sense. Because Livy said it best. Misogyny. I think he feels that Ruby had more of a responsibility as a mother than he had as a father. So she's a worse person for falling under Jody's. And I'm completely speculating. This is just me spitballing, but my God. Pathetic. Shameful. Shame on Kevin Franke.
You mentioned in your statement that Jody was able to convince you that you were actually a danger to your own family. And this is something that apparently there are several other men that we've talked to that said the exact same thing. Can you explain why she was so convincing, how she was able to make people believe that they were not safe for their own children to be around?
I'm not going to go into tremendous detail on this. There's a lot that I want to say, but now is not the time, and I will speak more about that in the future. But what I will say is that she has a tremendous ability to manipulate and to take advantage of the vulnerabilities and the weaknesses of an individual. She, unlike any other person I've ever met in my life, had the ability within a relatively short amount of time to size you up and recognize your strengths and recognize your weaknesses. And she did not hesitate to take advantage of your weaknesses. And so she preyed on the vulnerable, those who were seeking help, those who were desperate to save their marriages, save their families. They came to her for help, and she took advantage of them.
So again, this is what I mean. If she preyed on the weak and the vulnerable, is Ruby a big evil child abuser, or was she an indoctrinated victim like you, Kev? Pick a story. I believe what he's saying about Jody. This is not about, is Jody bad? We all agree that Jody's bad. But you and Ruby were both the parents of these kids. So if you're not bad, then Ruby's not either. Or if Ruby's bad, then so are you. This is what I don't understand. Like, I don't know how he, as a university professor, does not get the logical fallacy that is going on here. Taya, it's like he's trying to atone and separate himself at the same time, but how can you truly atone if you don't acknowledge your own actions in the situation? Right. Is he even trying to atone, though? Because he hasn't said the word sorry. He hasn't said the word, I did this. And I think, you know, like he said at the beginning of this last clip, he doesn't want to go into tremendous detail. Now is not the time. A future time will come. I think he's referring to some kind of a lawsuit. I'm sure he's going to sue the genes off of Jody. But And so that's why he's probably not saying things like, I'm sorry, I did this wrong. But he's got to understand how this looks, dude. And I think that you can you know, if it's for the sake of a lawsuit, maybe don't come make these statements then. Don't come throwing blame around when don't throw rocks when you live in a glass house, dude. And then later sue somebody else for how thin your glass was. You know, like, I don't...
What are you hoping for now? I know you mentioned that laws need to be changed. What specific laws are you hoping that they can actually change as soon as possible?
Yeah, the laws that need to change in this state are laws pertaining to child welfare. We need to close those loopholes that Jody and Ruby navigated to avoid any sort of intervention on behalf of my children. I'm also working with legislators to create new legislation, the first of its kind in this country, to begin regulating this shadow industry called life coaching that currently is completely unregulated, has no standard of practice or ethics, and these individuals can almost literally completely destroy a person's life, their livelihood, their families, and walk away with zero repercussions based on our current laws. I know of no other profession that can effectively impersonate a licensed professional and have no consequences.
Yeah, I did a story with Senator Hankins, and I think he accidentally told me that, like, it slipped out, that you came to him and said, hey, look, this is an industry that needs to be heavily regulated.
Yeah, that one's my brainchild.
Sir, don't you dare take credit for the idea that life coaching needs to be regulated. Have you been under a rock for like the past 10 years since like life coaching became like a popular career? You're probably way before this became Kevin Franke's brainchild. Hannah on Smoky Glow was talking up a storm about how life coaches are like not a real thing and you shouldn't trust, like it's not a regulated thing. Anybody in a psychological or social profession knows, let alone just like everyday consumers, there's no letters, there's no MD, there's no LPN, there's no MSW after the name of a life coach because it's not a license. Sir, just because you're the first person that you've heard say these things doesn't mean that you came up with the idea first. That too. Hannah Smoky Glow has been banging the family channels are unethical drum for a long time too. Absolutely. Yeah. And we've got more on that too. If I ever get through this video, this stream, I have to go to work eventually, so I'm not sure how long I'm going to be streaming on this. But there were some comments by Chad recently. Thank you, Taya. Yeah. Just a minor point. If a life coach gives out a diagnosis, that's when they can be in trouble with the law. So there's at least some kind of regulation broadly, very broad. Also, every actual profession warns about them. Yeah. Kevin Franke is not the first, nor will he be the last. I hate this shit. Misogyny. Okay.
So, I don't know if that law actually was able to make it through the session this last time.
Well, we proposed it in November. So we had no time to even put the pen to the paper by the time the legislature was voting. But it was important enough that it's gone under addendum study this year. And it's definitely going to be on the docket the next legislative session.
Let's say it's like, not to ask you, you're still working on that, right?
Oh yeah, by the time it was voting, we didn't even have the law written. There was nothing to vote on.
I think there is a good deal of interest in how you and your family are doing. And so without being invasive, I want to ask to what level you feel comfortable. Are you able to share how you and your children are doing?
I can state that we are struggling and working through the process of recovery, and that's all I can state.
We see you here today advocating for change. These things take time. Are you in this for the long haul? Should we expect to see you at legislative hearings from here on out until the changes you're asking for are realized?
Oh, I'm going to become a man possessed. This is just the beginning. And change needs to happen. And it doesn't need to just happen here in the state of Utah. It needs to happen everywhere. And we're just beginning.
So again, like, I don't disagree with the laws that he's saying need to be changed, need to be tightened, loopholes erased. I just wish that he could advocate for change while at the same time recognizing that he needs to be changed because he did these things. A man possessed. That's not a phrase that I've heard before either. But I guess it means he's about to be very passionate about this. Yeah, interesting word choice. Yeah, to say the least.
I also want to state and point out that one of the big reasons I'm here today is to call the legislature to perform a professional audit of DOPL. It's come to my attention, and I've learned over the last few months, several of the concerning things that DOPL knew about Jodi Hildebrandt and yet continued to issue her a professional license year after year. The only reason we even gave Jodi Hildebrandt any attention was because she was a licensed professional mental health counselor. And if she wasn't licensed, we would never have listened to her or given her the power that we did.
So I think this is what I was thinking about earlier when I was saying, I think this is what he's saying. Now he said it in this interview. He didn't say it in front of the legislature. So that's this. And honestly, that makes sense to me that if somebody is a life coach and they're a licensed therapist, I would give them some more weight as a parent who's, or like if I'm in a relationship and I'm struggling and I'm looking for guidance. But I would also wonder why, if you're a therapist, you need to have a life coaching business. Can't you just give people therapy? How is it different? Like a therapist should be giving therapy. Like that would, if I trusted life coaches, I would particularly trust one that has some mental health licensing. But if I didn't trust life coaches, I would particularly not trust, in a way, like one with mental health licensing, because I'd be like, why are you life coaching instead of therapizing? So that's weird to me. Okay.
Have you been given any indications on the likelihood that they will take action on these issues that you've brought up and the things you're calling for, such as an audit?
To date, no. I don't have any indication how they'll respond other than the state legislators and senators that I'm communicating with appear to agree with me that what happened was egregious and needs to be investigated in a transparent way, and that needs to be shared with the public. I think we tend to have the tendency when we're in the hot seat to want to do it behind closed doors. And I think there are individuals in this state in positions of authority that really need to be exposed. And their actions and the things that they did and knew, we need to know about it so that it doesn't happen again.
It's hard.
I'm just popping in to say that he's talking like he's talking out of his ass. He's talking like he's a college professor, right? So, and he's a dad. And like I said, he's used to being the smartest guy in the room. He doesn't know what he's talking about with that whole paragraph he just said. He's just saying a lot of things, alluding to some conspiracy that, like, okay, dude. Again, I am glad that change is a-coming in Utah. I'm just annoyed with Kevin. I'm not annoyed with the laws being changed.
To rectify, I can imagine, but how much blame do you place on Jody Hildebrandt, your wife, and the system? How does that balance out?
The news reporter or the interviewer not asking how much blame he places on himself is just the poetic irony or something. It's the perfect illustration of cultural misogyny that's like being accepted in this situation in the state of Utah where this news organization is based. How do you ask Kevin Franke where the blame is placed and not ask him as a journalist? Journalists are supposed to ask tough questions. How do you not ask him if he places any blame on himself? Ma'am, I'm just saying, they're enabling his narrative, and it's really frustrating to see from a journalist.
Yeah, I can't give an equation for how I partition the blame. It's just a giant train wreck. When you approach a train wreck, you can't partition and say, well, this part of the mess was due to the wheel coming off the track, and this part of the mess was due to this or that. In my view, in my perspective, it's all just a giant.
Okay, so there is a problem with Kevin's mindset. Yes, you can. Yes, you should. You should go back to a train wreck and yes, identify. This was due to to a wheel coming off. This was due to a bump in the track or whatever. Yes, you should be doing that shit. And I think that was very telling that he's not doing that. He's not looking back. He's not trying to analyze and get to the bottom of what went wrong here. He's just seeing mess and seeing this is wrong. Wrong, bad, mess. I do different. But what caused the mess, Kev? What was your part in the mess? Maybe he doesn't want to assign blame because he knows he would have to assign blame to himself. I don't know. But I think that was a very Freudian slip moment of like, I'm not trying to analyze what happened. I'm just trying to make my life the way that I want it to be. However, I need to do that. I'm not trying to find where the problems were so that I can fix them and prevent them from happening in the future. I'm not trying to get specific. I'm not trying to go into detail. I'm not trying to pinpoint choices that could have been made differently. I'm not trying to go through exact specifics and examples of what went wrong. I'm just looking at it as like, this is a big ugly pile of gross. Anyway, dude, come on. No wonder your reunification process is a struggle if you're not willing to look back beyond July of 22 into your own actions. It seems, allegedly, based on how he just said that. No wonder it's not going well.
Mess. I'll leave that to you, the reporters, the investigators, to do the digging and find that out.
Yes, the prosecutors.
I should have let it play for one more sentence. What the fuck did you do? Oh my God. Hold on. Let's go the fuck back to listen to the full answer.
Your life and the system. How does that balance out?
Yeah, I can't give an equation for how I partition the blame. It's just a giant train wreck. When you approach a train wreck, you can't partition and say, well, this part of the mess was due to the wheel coming off the track, and this part of the mess was due to this or that. In my view, in my perspective, it's all just a giant mess. I'll leave that to you, the reporters, the investigators, to do the digging and find that out.
Yes, the prosecutors.
Excuse fucking me? I'm so sorry. How is the investigator and the reporter First of all, they're doing the digging. They're asking you. You were part of the family where the thing happened. You were in the home. They're your kids. They're asking you for information. Are they supposed to get in their time machine and go back in time to go visit your house over the past few years? You're the one who was there. This is so weird. This is so weird, dude. They're investigating right now. They're asking you what you saw, what you knew, where you think things went wrong. How are they supposed to go into your family home in the past to find out what they weren't there for? The amount of deflection, the amount of what are you even? Why can you not even take responsibility for figuring out how to fix the problem? You're not taking responsibility for being involved. You're not taking responsibility for having done anything. You're also not taking responsibility to fix it and make it better, dude. You're working on a broad spectrum. You're working on changing laws, but you're also part of this religion that's very anti-government. So you're saying, I want the government to be stricter about how we teach our kids and how we raise our kids and how we parent our kids. But at the same time, I am going to teach my kids that the government is evil. So, and again, I'm speculating, I'm assuming, but if he's part of this conservative faction of Mormonism, Latter-day Saint, Christianity, and you don't have to get that conservative to get to the realm of people who don't trust the government, why do you think that this is enough? Why is this your mindset? At this point, I'm just fascinated to solve the puzzle of this man's brain and what he thinks is right and wrong, because the logical fallacies abound. The more I sit and think about what he's saying and let it sink in, the more I'm just flabbergasted.
Years down in the South, just who is the more culpable party? When two people have the same charges, they always determine one's more culpable than the other. And we asked them, and they were kind of hesitant to say which one's more culpable. So
there's legal ramifications to that. There's legal ramifications to that for sure. I will say this, that if it was not for Jody Hildebrandt, this would not have happened.
We know that.
I do agree with him that when Jody came into the picture, things got a lot more extreme, and this wouldn't have happened without Jody. But this also wouldn't have happened without you and Ruby. First of all, you were already borderline abusive to your kids before Jody came in. Jody just came in and turned the volume up to 10. You already had a mindset leading in that direction. She just gave you permission, as far as I'm concerned. So it's not just Jody. It's not, sir. Look in the mirror just once. Just try it.
Ruby and Jody will have parole hearings. I think last I checked, they were calendared for some time in September. Do you anticipate being active and going to those hearings and advocating for either continued incarceration or release?
I anticipate advocating for my children's well-being, their recovery and their health, and whatever that entails, that's what I will do.
You've talked about a couple different paths, the audit, trying to change the loopholes. Do you see these things as things that can be resolved within a session or a couple of sessions, or do you see it as more of an ongoing battle that will take years, I guess?
That's a good question. I don't think that these are issues that can be resolved overnight. I think it will take time. It will take a lot of discussion. And several of the issues that I raised in the statement, the joint statement that I shared from my daughter and I, are probably going to be pretty bristly to certain individuals in the state who advocate very strongly for individual and familial rights, which I'm an advocate for as well. Make no mistake about that. There has to be a balance, though, and there has to be accountability when lines are crossed.
Were you satisfied with the answers that Tanya Myra from DCFS was giving about when efforts are made to talk to a family that's not cooperating, what their process, and then how they eventually close out the case if they don't have enough? Were you satisfied with what she told lawmakers?
I believe that the response that was given was very factual. I think that she stuck to the current policies. I do think there was a little bit of dodging regarding the question that was asked. The question really is there more that can be done? Because literally, if all a person has to do is just not answer the door, is that the answer for all child abusers to avoid getting caught? Don't do your child abuse out in public and don't answer the door. Is that really the solution? Because that's what Jodi Hildebrandt practiced. That's what she taught my wife, and that's what worked. And that is the loophole that needs to be closed.
I think my last question, when we think of how this came to light, I always just think about, oh my goodness, they were so close to being in a much worse situation when they finally got help. Do you have those thoughts of what if?
Yeah, I have those thoughts of what if on a daily basis. It's part of the trauma and the post-trauma that I deal with. I'm incredibly grateful for the heroics of my son in saving his life, his sister's life, and probably his other sisters and our family as well. He truly was a hero. It is a lot to deal with every day. The questions of what if, what could have been, what should have happened, what I should have done, what others should have done. It haunts you. And
finally, he said something about what he should have done. Not a word in the hearing. Not a word for the first 14 minutes of this interview. Finally, he says, yeah, I think about what I could have done, but also I think about what others should have done. I think about what the system should have done, what Judy and Ruby should have done. Sir, thank God, because you believe in God. Thank God that your son had enough backbone to stand up for himself and his sister and get them and the other two sisters the fuck out of there. Because clearly you didn't, man of the house. Clearly you didn't know for whatever reason. Was it because you didn't want to know? Was it because you were so concerned about fixing your marriage that you didn't care as much about finding out what was going on with your children? There's a lot of speculation I could do about why you didn't know, but you didn't know. And you are the person who could have done something had you known, had you found out, had you cared to know, had you prioritized your children who did nothing wrong. And thank God your son figured out how to be a young man in that situation and stand up and have an opinion and have a moral compass. Because clearly you weren't gonna. I don't know where you learned that from, but anyway. Not too far from the end of this nonsense.
It's my struggle and others to learn how to deal with that and to do what we can to make the best of our lives moving forward. And part of my healing is being here today to open my mouth, to put myself in this position that's terribly uncomfortable for me, but
I'm so sorry. How is this uncomfortable for you? How is this uncomfortable for you? You're getting up there and blaming everybody else. Everybody has already seen the terrible details of this case on the internet, on the news. What about this exactly is uncomfortable for you? Everybody is going along with your narrative. Everyone is treating you like a victim. Do I believe you're a victim? Yes, I think you are part victim. I also think that you are partly responsible, just like Ruby. She's part victim, she's part responsible. You both are victim of a situation that you created. It went way too far. Yes, It got out of control and turned you into a victim, but you created the situation. You planted the seeds of bringing Jodi into your house, giving her authority, respecting what she had to say, not having any red flags about her wild ass teachings. And then it became too far. There was a power struggle. Jodi won. And now you're a victim. But you also created the situation that turned you into a victim. Okay? So everybody is buying the one side of that narrative, that you're a victim. Everybody there is like, oh, wow, what a great guy coming out and telling us to close loopholes. Wow. How is that uncomfortable for you? Okay, buddy. All right. Spend one day enduring what your son and your daughter had to endure under Jodi and Ruby's rule. And then tell me about what's uncomfortable.
If I can make a difference, then I want to do that.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Sharing with us. Those are my questions.
That's all I can think of. You answered quite a lot of it.
Is this your first media interview since?
Yeah, this is my first interview.
Since the 70s? Or?
Ever.
Oh. Well, you don't seem like it's your first time. You did very well.
I haven't wished to speak to the media up to this point. I have a pretty large distrust of media. I think a lot of people do. And the reason that I'm speaking to you today is not necessarily to talk about my story. My story will be told, and it will be told in all its detail in the future when the time is right. I'm here today to speak about these important issues. The committee from the legislature was meeting today, and this was the time. This was the time to speak. And so I'm here, and I'm going to do what I can to work with these legislators to make meaningful change in this state.
His story will be told, everybody. The Kevin Franke story. The biggest victim in all of this. There was a section that stuck out to me the first time that I listened to this. That I'm trying to find it now. Where he it didn't stick out to me just now, but there was some moment in there where he said something about like my children, I don't know, something like that. There are moments here where he is very, when it suits him, he'll take great ownership over his children and being told what to do about his children. But where was that ownership 2 years ago? When your children needed you to be a dad and you were really focused on fixing your marriage with your wife more so than you cared about how you were being a parent to your kids, it seems, in my opinion, based on a lot of resources I've watched about this case. There's a lot to look through. I'm not going to be able to recap all of it right now because we're already over 2 hours on this stream. There's times he's perfectly happy to be the dad, the man of the house, in charge, the professor, the smart one, the smartest one in the room, the guy laying down the law, helping these lawmakers see the error of their ways, helping them figure out how to do what's right because he's so smart, he's got such a big smart brain, and he can advise so nicely and so wisely as the authoritative dude. How I wish that Kevin Franke had showed up 2 years ago and had a single piece of spine or just like a smidgen of care to keep up with his kids and make sure that things were okay while he was outside of the house. Boy. So that was Kevin's interview. after his joint statement with Sherry given to the legislature. There was one more video that I watched today that was like kind of related to this, but kind of not. It was a video. I don't think I'm going to watch the whole thing right now because we're past when I thought I would be streaming. But it's a video by Spill Sesh. There's been a good amount of drama content surrounding statements that Chad, the son of Ruby and Kevin Franke, eldest son, but like second oldest kid, he's become a bit of an influencer, and he's been, making statements online regarding his parents, and there's been a lot of drama coverage of it. And I'm not necessarily going to provide a lot of commentary about it because, I just don't think that there's much for me to say. Other than he's doing his thing. I think he's using the platform that he did not ask for, and I think he has every right to do that. I do recommend watching this video by Spill Sesh. It's linked in my description along with the other videos that I used today. Chad is part of this first generation of students, of kids who are the kids of mommy vloggers. And in this video describes a situation that he was recently in where he was calling out a mommy vlogger saying, who she was posting footage and videos of herself with her son, who's about 13. And he was saying to her, like in private messages, that your son is going to grow up to resent you. I know that right now he seems like he's into it, but he's going to grow up to resent his mom making money off of him. And I think that, you can watch this video. It's in my description. I'm not going to watch it right now. But I think it is very valuable and very interesting to listen to Chad's perspective as part of this first generation of kids to grow up on social media and how they think about it. We've all speculated for a long time that this is what these kids are going to think when they grow up. And now through Chad, through Sherry, through a few other select young adults, we can start to see whether we're right. It seems so far with Chad that we are right. Although Chad had a very specific experience because of how tough his parents were on him, how harsh his parents were. If it's another family that, they're just going to Disneyland all the time, and, it might be a whole different perspective from that kid when they grow up. But I do recommend that you go watch this video. I'm not going to take the time right now because it's not related enough to what Kevin is saying to include it right now. But still, I think it's a good video, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it if you do go watch it in the comments after this video, after this live stream is over. So what a big day. What a big day in America. All across the USA. We've got accountability on the East Coast, deflection in Utah. We're trying to correct course as a country, and that's good to see. We need to work on it a little bit more. But I don't think I have any big, deep thoughts here beyond what I've already shared, I guess. Other than just like what a difference in what accountability looks like. The Massachusetts State Police and the Canton Police and the Alberts, they know how to handle accountability, it seems. Kevin Franke has never heard the word before, or at least doesn't know what it means, despite being a big smart brain university professor. doesn't know what it is, doesn't know how to do it, or he's just allergic to trying it, or he's allergic to publicly talking about it. Maybe that's because of a lawsuit. I don't care if it is. If you can't talk about a situation properly because of a lawsuit, then don't talk about it at all. Because it's more damaging for your kids. You still have minor children that are in your care that you're trying to reunify with. I know that it is helpful for you to advocate using whatever celebrity that you still have to advocate for these laws, to help bring about change in these laws that clearly need changing in Utah regarding the treatment of children. And I'm going to talk about that more with the Troubled Teen Industry series that I'm doing. The next stream on that should be on Friday. But so there is value in lending your influence, that whatever that you have, whatever celebrity that you have, to the cause, speaking from your personal experience. But it's also damaging to your kids to watch you talk about it in this superficial, deflective way, where you're constantly blaming their mom for everything, as if you weren't also their dad, who was also there, and who also chose to bring Jodi into the home, and who also chose to follow her instructions and to be indoctrinated by her and to trust her and to let her have free reign over their, what did you say? Like, to physically torture them or whatever. You were a part of that. I'm so sorry. So I know you really think you're doing something, Kevin Franke, and I'm not going to say that you're not doing anything, but you're not doing what you think you're doing. I guess that's the simplest way to put it. And you're not doing what I think you should be doing. Yeah. Sammy, I have no sympathy for anybody but the kids in this case. Nothing would have changed if not for the kids. Yeah, the kids were the one who figured out how to get the fuck out of that situation. I do have slight sympathy, or maybe it's empathy, for Ruby and Kevin feeling that they could trust Jodi because of her license, and then by the time they realized they couldn't, it was too late, or whatever, or like feeling indoctrinated into that cult. But alongside that empathy and sympathy, clearly I can see that there are choices that they made that led them there, that they should have not made, and that they need to be reflecting and looking back on those choices and seeing how they could have done it differently. Honestly, we've seen evidence of that from Ruby Franke, whether you believe her or not, whether you think she's faking it or not, up to you. But at least she's pretending to be remorseful, even if she's not. But I think that she is, honestly. She reminds me a lot of very religious people are always looking for these like brain blast moments, these signs from God, these like spiritual moments. And I think that for her, she's almost taking the statement that she made during her sentencing about her remorse and everything, reminds me of like, wow, this was such a godsend. This was such a blessing. Religious people are very capable, speaking as one, heavily religious people are very capable of turning on a dime their beliefs, their mentality, their whatever, if they think that it is from God. If they think that God is telling them X, then they're going to do X. If she comes to have the brain blast that, oh, God set this in motion for the police to come and for me to be arrested because I needed to be separated from Jodi because Jodi is the bad one, then she can, in that moment, suddenly see things, suddenly the eyes are opened and see things differently. So there is a part of me that believes that Ruby has had a mindset change and that she represented in court. after not being in Jody's clutches anymore. There is a sympathy that I have for the religious people who are trying to do God's work and trying to live the most godly, God-friendly, God way. But you have to have some discretion. You have to have some boundaries. You have to have some moral compass. You have to have some second opinion sometimes when you're being told something brand new. You have to keep some critical thinking about you, even within the context of your faith. Because this is why. Because this kind of shit can happen. It can get out of control. It can become extremist. And that is what they allowed to happen. Ruby at least seems to be able to pretend, if not actually is able, to look back and see how that happened. Kevin Franke just looks back and sees a train wreck. He doesn't want to figure out how the train wreck happened, whether it was about a wheel falling off or whether it was a dent in the track or whatever it was. He just looks back and sees a train wreck and he wants to block the whole thing out and just move forward without figuring out what happened. So I have the least sympathy for him between him and Ruby. I didn't used to, now I do. Oh, hold on, Taya. This is from an earlier. He has to live with his own guilt and shame and work through it. It is sad that he is in this position, and I'm empathetic to that, but that's where my empathy stops. I hope he gets help so he can see his part in this and change his ways and realize his involvement. I hope he's getting professional help. I hope he's not just like on his own trying to make his family like him again. I really, really do. To be clear, my empathy does not negate my rage and personal disdain for him. I care more about the kids and if he's still with them. Him changing would be the best for them. Abso-freaking-lutely. And it would be the best for him. Like I said, he lives in a misogynist society as, first of all, white man in America. Secondly, in a conservative state, Utah, in a conservative religion, in a misogynistic environment. He's used to being the smartest man in the room. He's used to being the leader in the room. He's used to being the head of the household. He's used to being the priest of the family. All sorts of these things that put him up on a pedestal just for existing and owning a dick. Like, he's used to a lot of authority. And the amount of humbling that needs to happen here is very foreign to him. I hope somebody can get through his thick skull that is the best for his family, for himself, for his community, for the people he's trying to change the minds of when it comes to the laws and stuff. It is not going to happen if they see hypocrisy in him, or at least he's going to be taken a lot less seriously. I don't think he's the best spokesperson for this stuff. I think that Sherry is a much better spokesperson as a kid who lived through this shit. Although she was an adult and didn't live through the Jody era, but she lived through enough of connections. I'd like to see Sherry talking about this. I would like to never hear from Kevin Franke again unless he is publicly apologizing for his neglect of his children, in my opinion. So anyways, what a day! Darker than I expected, my friends. My apologies. Everybody... Oh, I drank through my whole entire drink. I'm gonna end it here. I need to get ready for work so I can go to work, and I need to catch up on the Alec Baldwin trial. If you're still hanging out, thank you so much. Longer stream than usual today, but fun. I hope this was fun. Seeing the wild statements and perspectives. I don't know how Kevin Franke still sees it this way a year later, almost. We're coming up on a year later. It's July 10th, and the kids were removed on July 31st, I believe, or August 31st, one of those. We're coming up on a year later. The denial and deflection is something to be studied. Let me know your thoughts in the comments after the stream is ended. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your week. It's Wednesday, it's hump day. You can do it. You can get there. And we'll watch this develop and unfold. As I said, I think the laws he's advocating for are good. I think the changes he's advocating for are good. I hope that they pass. I wish that he was not the mouthpiece because of the hypocrisy. And I hope that he can come to realize and recognize where he done fucked up and change for the sake of himself, his family, his children, especially because it seems like he's going to have custody. So I hope he's parenting them with the understanding that he's not perfect. Obviously. He's not just a victim. Obviously. Obvious to everyone but himself. I hope his eyes get opened. That's all for today, everybody. Take a deep breath. Breathe in, breathe out. It's been a thick one today, but hopefully interesting. And let me know your thoughts. And have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic week. Until Friday, I'll see you again to talk more about troubled teens. And like the stream, subscribe to my channel, set your notifications to all because I'm mostly streaming nowadays. Let me know if you want any of my input regarding the Alec Baldwin trial or any other topics you want me to stream on. Let me know. Thank you. Peace be with you always. Bye.